Welcome to Scoop World Order. We're training camp ready. The media days are rolling along in Indianapolis. The Big Ten Media Days, maybe the most worthless day of the year. We are represented by Ryan Day, GT2 Maloau, Marvin Harrison, and also Cade Stover. Three guys that absolutely hate talking to the media, but they try to do the best they can. A lot of coach speak, a lot of pablum, but we're going to sort through it. Is Oregon going to join the Big Ten? Is that Brutus Buckeye that posted that on Instagram going to get fired? And do we have a new linebacker coming from the Dayton area to Ohio State? We're going to break all that down. But first, as always, need you guys to shout out where you're from. Man, I'm telling you, we got Peru, we've had Korea, we got people watching from all over the place. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning into that. Again, thank you. We just passed 20,000 subscribers. Huge milestone for us on BuckeyeScoop.com. All thanks to you guys. If you enjoy this content, please leave us a like. That little thumbs up is humongous for us. Really helps our video out, so thank you so much for doing that. Click subscribe. Send this to your friends, family, coworkers, nephews, nieces, cousins, whoever. If they're Buckeye fans, they deserve to watch this content. If they're college football fans, they deserve to watch this content because we're getting a little bit broader in our topics. And as always, if you like our live content, click that little bell, little dinner bell, and you'll get a little alert when we go live. We love interacting with you guys. You guys bring the heat in the questions. We read all your comments. We appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for our growth. Thank you for making Buckeye Scoop #1 in the sphere. That being said, time to bring in my good friend at Nevada. I don't even know where to start because we haven't done a podcast in about 3 days. I was at the golf outing for Buckeye Scoop members in Youngstown, Ohio. So I've been a little bit out of it, but man, we have a ton of content to go over. Where would you like to start, my friend?
Well, like you said, there's just so much to unwind. I mean, we've got Ryan Day's comments at the Big Ten meetings. We've got recruiting stuff. We've got expansion stuff. I mean, it's a cornucopia of good stuff. I was thinking about it in the pre-show. I'm like, man, we've got so much stuff. We're going to try to jam it all into 60 minutes, but this is going to be nonstop pandemonium and a lot to unwind. What I love best is when stuff comes out at the media day, when people mention guys and we're like, man, we had that stuff. We if you're a member of Buckeye Scoop, there's names that you may hear at the. If you're not a member, you'll hear names at the press conference and go, "Wow, I didn't know that guy was doing well." If you're a member of the Scoop, you go, "Oh, wow, now I know what they're talking about." So it was nice to hear some of the confirmation from some of the guys that we're hearing inside the camp, and just a lot to unwind. So let's get after it. Let's start with Big Ten media days and what was said and what we're hearing and what was said and what they mean and what was said and what they should have said and what they said and what they could have said and just what they said.
Well, I love where they started. Ryan Day mentioned Luke Montgomery. That's the guy I've been hearing all the buzz about. A lot of good sources in the Woody Hayes talking about how good Luke's been in conditioning. I know that's the spot where he would shine. Very athletic kid, very light kid. He's going to look great in the conditioning drills. They mentioned Austin Somerville. That was going to be the next nugget that I was going to have this week, is I've heard some great things about Austin. A lot of concerns about him because he came from Lakota East. They run triple option, a lot of run blocking. But I've heard he's really done great. A kid that had a Bama offer. We got him. I think a lot of these kids get underrated when we get Ohio kids, even if they've got a Bama offer. So are they committable or they're not committable? But we got some young linemen that are making a push. I think it's going to be interesting to see what shakes down at tackle. I think that, I think George Fitzpatrick will give Josh Schreier a big run for his money at left tackle. And I think the right tackle battle between Josh Simmons, Zen, I'd throw Luke Montgomery in at both tackles and see how he does it at both.
Now, wait a second. You're saying that we've got young, talented offensive linemen that just haven't had a chance to play yet? That's what you're saying? Oh my goodness. Who would have known that? I thought the word of the day was, let's panic about the offensive line because we don't have guys on the offensive line. It's like, man, we've been saying all offseason, just relax. It's going to be fine. Yeah. Got some young, talented guys. Not everybody plays. You only start 5 guys. You only play maybe 6. So you've got a lot of talent. It's just inexperience. And then here today, you hear all these nice things about these offensive linemen. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, that's what we're saying, man. Just relax. Take a big, deep breath. Have an adult beverage if you're so inclined. If not, have a Fresco or a Tab. Tab is always good. And just enjoy the offensive line work, man. I'm telling you, the offensive line's gonna be good this year. Young, inexperienced, but good and fun to watch.
Yeah, and like I don't judge them when they're going against JT and Jack. So I think JT and Jack are two of the top 10 ends in the country. So, if the tackles don't look good in a scrimmage or whatever, I'm like, well, yeah, they're not going to see guys like JT and Jack very often. They see them every day in practice. They'll see them in a scrimmage, but they're not going to see those guys in the first 8, 9 games of the year. I mean, they might have one or two out of Penn State or Michigan, but I think JT and Jack are going to be really good, and that'll be the best way to get these tackles ready to go. Is they're going to be going against two really good defensive ends, two guys that are frankly trying to get paid. Those guys both want to leave after 3 years. They want to go to the NFL after this year. I think JT is a lock to leave. I think Jack is, he's going to have a good year. If he has a good year, I think Jack's gone too. But there's nothing better for young tackles than going against two guys that are 3-and-out type defensive ends. And again, that's why it's kind of like a quarterback. If it's Kyle McCord, if it's whoever. I mean, if it's Lincoln Keenholz, if it's any of these guys, I'm just telling you, like Ryan Day is going to have a good quarterback ready to go. It's the same with the offensive line. Like whoever ends up winning the tackle spots, we're going to be fine. We don't have to play Georgia week 1. Everyone's like, oh my God, are they going to have to be Georgia? Well, we don't play them for 12 games at least. And if we see Georgia, it's going to be in the playoffs, first or second round. So we've got time to get these guys ready. Like I think we'll be fine. Our skill guys are out of this world good. So, I think that I'm excited about see who develops on this O line. I love when there's competition. I love when it's not just a stagnant line. I mean, obviously it's great to have Paris Johnson as your cornerstone left tackle, but when you've got guys that are fist fighting for the job, I mean, I've been in that position literally. I was fighting two other guys, TJ Downing and Tim Schaefer, for the job. I ended up beating them both out and being the starter after, but it took 4 games. I didn't start week 1, and then from there I was the starter for 4 years. But I love competition, man, because these guys know they can't take a day off. If you take a day off, you get reduced reps, you get pushed down to the second team, whatever. So I'm excited about fine. I'm excited to see what this team has, man, because they've been whipped like dogs, man. The Georgia thing, the Michigan thing. I got a question. The Ryan Day made a little comment, talking about maybe revising the schedule, moving Michigan to a week other than the last week of the season due to us potentially playing them year over year in the championship game. What were your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Well, I really had mixed emotions about that comment. It's kind of a heart head type of thing. My head tells me that what he's saying makes a lot of sense and it's probably inevitable. And, the interest of Ohio State winning the national championship and being best positioned in the playoffs, probably the best thing. Having said that, I think he's the wrong guy to be delivering that message right now. And I'm not sure who the right guy is, but it ain't Ryan Day. So I don't think it played well. I don't think it'll play well with the fan base. So I really had mixed emotions about the comment. We have a pretty active thread on it. And I think, most of right now, I'd say the majority of our people are kind of understanding of the comment and, kind of recognizing the reality of the changes in college football that are upon us for 2023. But coming from him, man, it just didn't sound right. And I wish he hadn't said it, because sometimes the message can be lost if the messenger's wrong. And I think he's the wrong messenger.
Yeah, I wish he had a more competent sports information director that would have told him, "Hey, leave that one alone. There's no need to mention it," because again, there's going to be a segment of the fan base that's going to say, "Oh, you want to ruin the tradition." Woody Hayes, Trussell, Paul Brown, whoever, Urban, last game of the year, last Saturday in November. That's when the game takes place, and you want to move it to week 2 or whatever. But I think it's inevitable. I think it's kind of that NFL thing where the Browns and Steelers open up week 1. It's not like they play week 17. The Browns and Steelers are a huge rivalry in the NFL. But I think eventually the game's probably going to move around. I don't want it to. I like it being the last Saturday of November. It's always such a permanent spot. You always knew that you're always working towards Michigan, and now it's like if you play Michigan week 3 or 4, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Again, I get getting, if you got to take a loss, you never want to lose in college football. If you lose early in the season, much more beneficial. We saw in 2014, we lost to Virginia Tech. I mean, if we'd have lost to Virginia Tech week 12, we don't make the playoffs. But we lost to them week 2 in the shoe, got whooped by a 7-6 team that fired their coach after the season or fired him a year or 2 later. And, and that Virginia Tech team went out and lost to East Carolina the next week with Lincoln Riley as the OC. And I just think that, if you got a bet, you get one of those big ones, and Michigan is the big one on the schedule that's consistent every year. get it out of the way early because win or lose, if you win, awesome. It'll boo you and it'll launch you up the rankings. But if you lose, you fall from 3 to 10 or 11 or whatever. Then you have your chance to work your way back up. When you lose at the end, man, it kills you. Man, the later in the season you lose, the harder it is to crawl back up the standings. It's tough, But again, the tradition and the traditionalists are going to be all over Ryan for that. And I just wish he had better advisors that would say, "Hey, just don't touch that one," because as much as that's bait, I mean, these guys are really good at not taking the bait because all the questions are basically who's going to be the quarterback, who's going to start on the O line, and these kids all deflected it like they were Patrick Wall playing goalie, and they did a great job because they literally the media sat there for an hour of each of the kids and an hour of Ryan Day, and they literally didn't get anything. I mean, I listened to it and I was just like, this is like terrible that people actually sit and listen to this, but those guys are coached up really well as to not give information out, not give any sort of edge to any player or any bulletin board material. But I thought Ryan hit the tripwire on that one, and that was unfortunate. Do you think the game will eventually move away from the last week of the season, Nevada?
I think it's inevitable. I mean, it's like the Texas Oklahoma game or whatever. It'll be big thing, and it's. I mean, let's just be real. It's not going to be as good. It's not. Having that game week 2 of the season, or in September, or to open the year, or to whatever, is not. It's not going to be as good. It's not going to be as dramatic. It's not. It's just not. It's going to be different. But that's just kind of where we're going. That's what we're going with this 8-team playoff, for this 12-team playoff, 16-team playoff, 24-team playoff. And that's not hyperbole. And we will be at a 24-team playoff inside of 10 years without question. 100% we will be there. And, it just gets to the point where it's just, it is an NFL model. And, it'll be different. It'll be different. So, I'm an old guy. I'm 60. So, I can still remember every season having that pit in your stomach rolling up to the Michigan game and then making your whole year when you win and ruining your whole year when you lose. And it ain't going to be that way anymore. So, we just got to roll with the changes, embrace them, and kind of move along.
Yeah, I agree. I think that with the expanded playoffs, it's going to take much less significance because, I mean, back in the day, in the olden days, 70s, it was like whoever won got to go to the Rose Bowl, loser stayed home. Then they expanded the field of bowls, so basically everybody gets to go to a bowl game now. And I think as the playoffs began, it really when I was playing, it was like if you lost the Michigan game, which fortunately I never did, you were out of the BCS national championship game, which was it was a 2-team playoff basically. The top 2 teams got to go, and in 06, 07, we were able to get in there, but it was because we beat Michigan. Now it's like if you could lose to Michigan and still make a 12 or 18 or 24-team playoff, then I don't really know what the point is. And if it gets to the situation where it's a locked in, Ohio State, Michigan are so far ahead of the rest of the Big Ten that they're going to play again in the championship, I don't know how that changes the game, because that's going to be one of those things where it's like, okay, the game in Ann Arbor or Columbus doesn't mean anything because the Big Ten's already clinched. The Big Ten East, North, first, second, whatever it ends up being is clinched, and you guys are going to play again in Indianapolis the next week. Like, what does that do to the game? Does it turn into a spring game and you just play whoever because the game doesn't really matter and the Big Ten championship's on the line the next week? So that'll be fascinating to watch. Again, it's a whole new stratosphere for college football, and I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be interesting to see how these coaches manage the season. I don't necessarily love that the season's going to go to about 15 games if you go to 24, but that's just kind of the direction they're going. It'll be interesting to see how many kids, say, okay, I'm not playing playoff games, or you're going to pay me NIL money or whatever, because, the problem with these playoffs is that the reason it expands is because it just generates, hundreds of millions of dollars for these TV networks and for these conferences. And if you're Marvin Harrison, it's like, do you really want to play 4 more games after Michigan because for the good old Buckeyes, or are you ready to call it a career or sit out or whatever? Because I mean, a guy like Marvin, I hate to say this out loud, but he has no incentive to play college football this year. He could sit out the entire year and be a top 3 pick. Like Jamar Chase went top 5. He didn't play his last year, Micah Parsons didn't play his last year. If Marvin Sadat went to Arizona, I mean, he'd still be a top 5 pick. People would love him and whatever. So, but it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. Nevada, we have a potential new linebacker coming from Dayton. Nigel Glover is going to visit this week. He has to make a decision by Sunday. He's a kid from he went to Northwestern, got there a few months ago for summer conditioning. Obviously, the atomic bomb has fallen on that program. It's ugly. What are your thoughts on us potentially taking a kid from Clayton Northmont in Dayton that we did not offer for the last recruiting class, but potentially could be landing?
Well, that's an interesting one because, I always say I go back and I look through the Big Ten every year, and you look at the number of players that are playing at these other schools that just ball out, and you just wonder, you say, wow, how did that guy escape Ohio State? Whether we could talk about Luke Kuechly, or we could talk about you know, I mean, Borland, or we could talk. I mean, like, you just pick a guy. There's just so many guys that kind of go and do it, and the question is, do we believe that this is one of those guys, one of those hidden gems that we might have missed on the first time around, but aren't going to miss the next time around? And I can tell you from talking to Ohio State people, they think so. They think they're excited about the kid, and bringing him in. This way, maybe one of those cases where Northwestern's foibles is our gain and is the net positive for Ohio State. And I'm certainly willing to give Ohio State the benefit of the doubt on this stuff because they're pretty stingy with offers, and when they extend them, it usually means something.
Well, it's just interesting when you watch this tape right here. If you guys watch this on YouTube, and I mean, he's playing a lot of linebacker, a lot of Sam Mike. He's playing some Sam Strong, Free. He's kind of all over the field here. And I think, like in modern college football, when you can make this guy play Sam linebacker over the slot receiver, it's a huge upgrade over the bigger linebackers. Obviously, I think Kingston would have been a great add to the class, and I still think that there could be a chance it could flip Kingston at some point. I know he picked Notre Dame, but I mean, if you follow the tea leaves at Notre Dame, there's something going on. The strength coach just resigned. They lost their line coach, their offensive coordinator, running backs coach, D-line coach. I mean, they've had massive turnover in 2 years under Marcus Freeman. So I'd keep recruiting Kingston like a mofo. But I think that this is a kid that, the biggest benefit of NIL for Ohio State is you basically can have infinite scholarships. Like Lorenzo Sales Jr. is a kid that we didn't initially take as a corner. We just got him as a corner as a transfer guy. He's a walk-on. And we have one of the collectives paying for his scholarship. So he has all the benefits of being a scholarship guy, gets the meals, gets everything. He'll never see a tab for his school. And that's something that Ohio State is, they're getting a little bit more lethal with. You could take a kid like this who's a tweener, kid that you might be on the fence about. And, if you don't have room for him the first year, you can have a collective pay for his scholarship, and I think I'm not sure if that's what they're doing here, but right now we're at 85 and camp starts in a week. So, unless you're going to cut a guy or have a guy medical in the next week, which we had 2 linemen medical today, I could easily see this kid being a walk-on and all of his room and board being covered by one of the collectives. So, again, I think that when you have these tweener guys that you're a little bit uncertain of, but you're closer to offering them than not offering them, do the walk-on thing. Say, hey, we're going to let this guy see how he goes for a couple years. If he doesn't pan out, he can always hit the portal and go elsewhere and go to a place that can suit him. But he might pan out. I'm telling you, like we whiffed on a lot of guys last year in the linebacker class. We've whiffed on some this year. This is a kid who's a big rangy kid. He can cover a lot of ground. He's an 11-1 100-meter dash guy. So again, that slot linebacker, which they call a nickel, I mean, in the olden days, we just called it a Sam linebacker, like what Darren Lee used to play. I could easily see Sonny Styles playing that role in early downs this year. These are the kind of body types that you need, these tall, rangy guys that can cover ground, tackle in space, cover, a quick slot guy. I mean, obviously, you'd have to help this guy if he's going against a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba, but a normal slot, who's not a first-round top 10 slot, I mean, I think this guy could handle him. Do you agree with that assessment, Nevada?
Yeah, no, I think, look, Ohio State's looking for guys that can run. And, clearly, that's the way that you're looking for linebacker / safety types at the 2023 and beyond, and be able to cover the defend those spread offenses. So a guy like this, Look, I think he fits the bill. The question is he talented? Is he on the same talent level? He's a different kind of linebacker than some of those other guys, and no reason to believe he can't be effective. Ohio State certainly thinks so, and I've always thought that with recruiting, it's not a zero sum game. It's not like if you don't get one guy, then that you don't get anybody. There are plenty of guys that are Ohio State worthy and Ohio State level playing high school football in the United States. The question is this one of them? And the guys that are paid millions of dollars and have their livelihood dependent on it think so. And so I'm inclined to believe them because, like I said, they're pretty stingy with offers, and when they extend them, it certainly gets my attention.
That's what I say, man. It's like when these guys are going on guys and analysts question who they're going on, I'm like, look, these guys, I mean, their livelihoods are at stake. Their families' livelihoods are at stake. If they want their daughters to stay in the same school district, I mean, you better hit on these kids, man. I mean, they got to put a lot of evaluation to it. I think a lot of times, recruiters don't get to see the mental side of these kids. They don't get to see what really makes them tick. They see, some camp stuff and some little bit of film on Huddle, but it's not the same deep eval that these coaches do. So sometimes there's some things that are amiss, and I'm excited to see, if this kid. I'm rooting for this kid. Honestly, he's an Ohio kid. He's a Dayton kid, hour away. I know that it's just like one of those things where I said it's like he came out of a pile of, for a lesser extent, a pile of poo, and he's gonna smell like a rose. If he goes from Northwestern a year ago committing, signing a letter of intent, scandal happens, hits the portal, and then he gets an Ohio State offer, which he didn't get the first time. I mean, I can't imagine a better scenario in the world for a kid from Dayton, Ohio, where all of a sudden he gets to be an Ohio State Buckeye instead of a Northwestern Wildcat. So, really excited about that. Let's talk a little expansion. There's a little smoke, a little Brutus, giving Donald Duck a little hug inside Alston Stadium. Nevada, was there anything to that? Was this a silly Instagram posting where they say, oh, something big, hashtag be the number one, and then capital G is being posted because it smells like Oregon's about to join the Big Ten. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, here's the situation. Oregon and Washington have been petitioning hard to join the Big Ten. The networks are saying that they're not additive. In other words, their addition to the Big Ten does not add incremental amounts of television money. So for the Big Ten presidents and for the powers that be, they're basically left with the thing with it. They've got a couple of good brands that they can add, but if it's not increasing their, the shares, then what do you do? So I think the answer to that is if you want them, you offer to bring them in at a lower tier than the existing members, and then you give them a chance to kind of earn up as this thing goes along. And that's been percolating for quite some time right now. And they've been waiting to have happen is they've been waiting for the Pac-12 to implode because they do not want to be responsible contractually or otherwise for the demise of the Pac-12. And right now you've got Colorado being actively poached by the Big 12 and possibly Oregon State as well. And I think if that happens, the Pac 12 unwinds. And at that point, Oregon and Washington jump. And so I think you're going to see a lot. This is the first domino is Colorado to the Big 12. And our information is that's happening and that's imminent. And once that happens, it's going to set off a cavalcade of other things that we've been talking about on Buckeye Scoop for about 6 months right now. And expansion is something I love talking about every day, but it kind of comes and goes. Well, it's coming now and it's happening. And so buckle up because things are going to start happening fast and furious.
Yeah, we have a contributor for those of you not on BuckeyeScoop.com named The Oracle, who is extremely high up in the realm of college football, deals with a lot of the biggest, highest players in it between TV networks, between chancellors, presidents, ADs. I mean, he's wired up for sound, and he breaks a lot of the expansion stuff on our site, and it's been spectacular watching him work. Obviously, Nevada, you've had fantastic sources. I mean, you had the USC thing before literally anybody in the world. We broke the USC to the Big Ten thing. I feel like, God, it was 2 years ago, but that thing, it was in motion in the back rooms, and all of a sudden it just came to fruition, and everyone's getting caught up to us. But again, the expansion thing is fascinating, just because I think that people don't realize this is about to turn into the NFL. This is about to be the Big Ten versus the SEC. Maybe 20 teams in each conference playing each other, big matchups, no more of the Arkansas Pine Bluffs, no more of the Youngstown States on the schedule. It's going to be nothing but big games. 2014 playoff. Like Nevada, is that the direction you see college football going?
No question. I think it's basically an AFC versus an AFL versus NFL, AFC versus NFC, however you want to characterize it. Big Ten versus SEC, two big power conferences, both with 20 or 24 members in them, and they're going to get after it and claim the ultimate champion of college football. And I think that's kind of the direction. I think everything that you're seeing in terms of expansion of playoffs, in terms of expansion of the conferences is geared towards that, and ultimately a breakaway from the NCAA on college football, because there's no reason for it. The NCAA is kind of a redundant instrument at that point. They'll oversee themselves. What the one missing piece that they need is a commissioner for college football. They need to have a commissioner of college football. They need to have somebody who's a heavy, like them or not. I mean, every league has got guys that they hate, whether it be Goodell or Bettman or whomever. People hate them, but you need them. And you saw how the NBA expanded. When they were under competent leadership, and you can see what happens. When it's not so competent. So I think ultimately you need to have a heavy. You need to have a Greg, a Sankey or a Jim Delaney come off the bench and be the commissioner of college football, and with the ultimate authority to administer penalties and to punish the cheaters and to establish rules that people have to abide by. And once you see that, then I think college football will really kind of ascend to the next level, and that's certainly something exciting to think about.
If you had that model, who would be your first pick? If you're, say, we make you, this would be amazing. If we made you the overarching chairman of college football, who would you appoint as the first commissioner? Because you already mentioned the name I'd go with, but who would you appoint if it was this Big Ten SEC model? Who'd be your first commissioner?
Well, it'd be Delaney would be my first one, but if Delaney wouldn't take the job, it'd be Sankey. And people hate Sankey at the SEC, but if you've ever heard him talk, you just put on YouTube and type in his name and listen to him talk. He is a sharp dude, and there's no doubt that he's one of the big reasons why the SEC has done such a magnificent job in terms of marketing themselves and developing their football program. And it's because you've got dynamic leadership, competent leadership, and thankfully right now I think the Big Ten's finally there after the Warren years, and Warren he just wasn't good. Let's just be honest, he wasn't
No.
good, and we paid the price for it, and it's okay. Ding dong, the witch is dead, because the guy we have now is a killer. And I love guys that have network or broadcast experience, because let's face it, college football is all about the broadcast experience. Where that drives everything. That drives NIL, that drives revenues, that drives expansion, that drives eligibility. It drives everything, because you've got to be able to come up with the answers to Marvin Harrison and other people. Are why are you playing this game? What's in it for you? Why are you doing this? Because until you can answer that and answer that, conclusively, you're going to have more and more players opt out of what's going to be increasingly onerous seasons that have gone from 10 games to 12 games to 14 games to 15 games. And I think competent leadership can do that. And I think the Big Ten's got it. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think Tony Petitti is a massive upgrade. I thought Kevin Warner was a quack, absolute joke of a commissioner. Again, I think that it all comes down to these TV rights, man. As you keep expanding these playoffs, you're adding layers and layers of 50, 100 million around where these kids get to, they're going to go, play and get exploited a little bit, but they got to get a cut of that. They got to have their parents get paid for to travel to these bowl sites. Again, the thing people don't ever talk about when they do these expansions and they had a Big Ten title game and they had, first round of the playoffs, second round of the playoffs, these parents are often destitute and they have to go pay, through the nose to get to these games. Obviously, NIL has been huge because that can help defray the cost tremendously, where the players could get some money and help these parents out. But as these expand, the parents should get a stipend, $5,000 around to get their families to these games. These games are very expensive to go to, and I think that they deserve that. Any other final thoughts? We'll wrap this thing. We had a really good talk. Luke Montgomery, Seyerveld, There's some big time guys that got mentioned today. Sonny Salas was talked about prominently by basically all of the guys at Media Day. Nevada, who are you most excited to hear about as training camp kicks off next Thursday, a week from tomorrow?
Well, I thought one of the things that, I think most of the conversations today were, like you said, were pablum or coach speak or whatever it was. But every now and then they slip up and they say something that they really mean. And that's when you got to pull it out. But Ryan Day actually started talking about running the quarterback more today, which I thought was really interesting. He attributed it to increased depth in the quarterback room for the reason to be willing to run the quarterback more. But I think it's more of like a realization that what everybody else in college football has been doing to great effect, and it's the one area that he's been unwilling to go to. I think you're continuing to see the evolution of Ryan Day. I think we saw a version of Ryan Day, kind of his best version against Georgia, which even in a loss I thought was probably his finest moment, even better than the Clemson game. And that Clemson game was great when we blew them out, but the Georgia game was a tall order. I love the way he coached. I love the way he brought the team together coming off a loss. And I think he's now taking a more administrative function, a more of a CEO function, dealing with NIL, dealing with kind of a global picture of the football program. And what does that mean? That means Brian Hartline's calling the plays. And we've talked about this. And is Hartline really going to be calling the plays, or is Day going to be on the? No, Hartline's calling the plays. So it's going to be fun to watch the Ohio State offense because this is different, man. We haven't seen this before, and you've got a brand new play caller. Brian also, Brian likes the trickeration. He likes some of the fun things in terms of doing. He's a young guy. He's an offensive guy. He's a guy doesn't look at offense traditionally, and I think Ohio State offense is going to be even more wide open and even more fun, than ever to watch in 2023. And I can't wait to see it.
I agree. I think Brian's going to open it up. He's going to throw it even more. I don't know if that's possible, but again, I think that Ryan, like you've mentioned 50 times on our site, is going to be more of a CEO. He has to have his hands on the defense. He has to be in both rooms, know what's going on. Truss was like that. Urban got to be like that a little bit later in his career. But I mean, I'm telling you, it helps him round out what he's doing as a coach a little bit more instead of just sitting in the offensive room and worrying that he has to run the show. Because again, he's got guys in there he trusts on. He's got Hartline. He's got Justin Fry, who's probably his best friend in coaching. And, he's got to let those guys do what they do. Got a super chat from D. Sonny. Appreciate you as always, my friend. If Notre Dame comes to the Big Ten down the line, would it make the money in the Big Ten so big that it could pull away from the SEC? Well, I think the Big Ten's TV deal is better than the SEC's right now. But if you throw Notre Dame in there, Notre Dame that's the blue blood A-list. That's like adding Taylor Swift to your concert. Nevada, what are your thoughts on that? If Notre Dame comes to the Big Ten down the line, would it make the money in the Big Ten so big it could pull away from the SEC?
Well, I think, as you said, I think they're pulling away already. I mean, it's a more lucrative deal, but it certainly would be additive. I mean, Notre Dame's one of those teams that is additive, whether people like them or not, whether people don't like Rudy or Newt Rockney or Lou Holtz or the Leprechaun or any of that other stuff. The bottom line is Notre Dame's good business, and people, this is a brand business. It's about accumulating brands. It used to be about accumulating eyeballs via cable systems. Now it's about national brands with streaming and other modes of distribution on the games. So Notre Dame is the biggest fish out there, the white whale. The thing is, they know it, but I think that they're coming around to the idea that they've got to be part of a conference. And I think ultimately they're in the Big Ten. Not a question of if, just a matter of when. And that's certainly going to be good for all involved.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. I think that, for me, I love when Ohio State plays less patsies, and I think that it's going to evolve to the point where, the Western Kentuckys go away, the Youngstown States go away, and they're replaced with USC and, I don't know, Florida or Texas A&M or somebody. Like, that's going to be the new normal when they go to this NFL type schedule. The NFL, the beauty of it is, obviously at the end of the year, there's some teams that are really out of it. They're 1-15 or whatever. But generally, the teams are pretty even. Obviously, the Chiefs are better than a lot of teams because their quarterback's so good, but the Chiefs can still go out and lose to the Houston Texans in a given week, which that doesn't happen in college football. When they don't have 48 point spreads in the NFL like they do in college. So I'm looking forward to the day where we get nothing but great games every week, and you see these cross-sectional rivalries, and you see the Big Ten playing the SEC. Like again, I'm excited for stupid games that people will be like, well, why would you ever watch it? But like USC has never had to go to like Bloomington before, or at least they haven't in my lifetime, or they've never had to go to like Purdue, or they've never had to go to Iowa. And now you're going to see, the Song Girls and USC in these venues that they've never played in. Because normally USC, if they're coming east, they're playing Ohio State or Michigan or in a big neutral site game in Atlanta or Dallas. And they're not playing in, in these little smaller type venues like Ross-Ade Stadium. So I'm excited to see those teams come here. And I'm also excited to see teams like Purdue and Indiana go play in the Coliseum. Like, I think that's going to be great for college football. It's great for the Big Ten. Again, like getting USC and UCLA, it's just going to be fun seeing these LA teams come to the Midwest and play, and see our teams go out there and play. I think that, you'll tune in and watch Iowa play USC when, USC, the Cali kids have to come into Kinnick and it's rough and tumble. And I think that's going to be great for college football. Nevada, we're going to wrap this again. Appreciate all you guys. This has been a great show. We've had a fantastic run on the Scoop. Any final thoughts from Media Day? They got day 2 of Media Day tomorrow. We'll break some of that down, but any thoughts, Nevada?
Well, it was nice to, one name that I heard mentioned today that we haven't really talked a lot about, and I don't think it's gotten enough run, but was Larry Philbin. The fact that they brought Philbin in as a analyst for Ryan Day, and the impact of an ex NFL head coach on a college football team, and it's something that we really haven't had the experience with before. You see Alabama stacks those guys like cordwood, and for us, we've never really had that. But he's a guy that I've heard a lot about during the offseason, and it was nice to hear Day talk about his impact, how nice it was to have a guy like that with those types of experiences right there as a resource to him on a day-to-day basis. It's going to make Dave a better coach, and that's, again, just a new chapter for Ohio State. I don't think we've ever had something like this happen before, and it's a net positive.
Yeah, I think Joe Philbin's a guy that's going to be a huge impact guy. He's not going to have.
Did I call him Larry? Did I call him Larry?
Yeah, but I assumed it's because you're like thinking of Larry Bird or something, because they're both white guys. But
I'm thinking Larry
okay.
Bird. Joe Philbin. Larry Philbin's his lesser known brother, but Joe Philbin's really good. But
both soft spoken white guys. I get it completely.
Yeah, exactly.
And he played, and he coached for the Colts. He coached our own Jack Mewhort, Scoop member Jack Mewhort, was coached by Joe Philbin when he was the O-line coach at the Colts.
Another soft-spoken white guy.
I know. We got the that's like the tic-tac-toe of soft-spoken white guys. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Joe Philbin's going to be a big ad. Again, he won a Super Bowl as an offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, head coach in the NFL. Those experiences never go away, kind of learning, growing a team. And the biggest thing is that he's an offensive line guy. So, I was worried about how are they going to replace the expertise of Kevin Wilson, and then Joe Philbin's on the bread line, and they bring him in. So, hey, we got an O-line guy who's been he was the O-line coach for the Cowboys last year, coaching Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, 2 first ballot Hall of Fame guys. So, again, I love that move. Again, it's a low cost move. He's making about $275, which is great. And I think he's going to do a great job for the Bucs this year. Any final thoughts, Nevada? Larry Bird.
Well, I like Larry Philbin better than Joe Philbin personally. I think his name should have been Larry. I remember those great McDonald's commercials between Magic and Larry Bird. Those were great. Like
Magic and
backboard.
Is it between Justin Fry and Larry Philbin trying to figure out who the tackles were off the backboard? Nothing but net. For
Justin Fry. Justin.
That's
Philbin.
perfect. Justin Fry. That's his NIL deal, because he could have been the Fry guys. Like the Fry guys were a thing at McDonald's growing up. So that would have been his NIL deal. He missed the boat. He's too old. He's a year older than me. So
yeah, you'd be Grimace. You're like Grimace. I
No,
look at you and I think whenever I look at you, I think Grimace, man. I'm telling you.
large purple. Dude, there's a Grimace shake at McDonald's a couple weeks ago. So
It
but
was it was great. That was awesome. I
I
actually
would
had it. I had the Grimace shake.
I would have been a Dairy Queen guy because I mean Dairy Queen's the best. Everybody loves Dairy Queen. Nobody ever says a bad word about Dairy Queen. And if you own a Dairy Queen, you know how to count cash and print money. That's all I know.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to wrap this thing up. We go on these crazy tangents. I appreciate you guys as always. Thank you, Scoop family. Thank you for all you guys that are tuned in. If you enjoyed this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, and also click on that little dinner bell. Let you know when we go live. Shout out where you're from. I've seen Peru. You guys can beat Peru. We have Peru. We've had Korea, Australia in the comments. It's been crazy, so we appreciate you guys as always. Thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. We might be back a little bit with the bank, so keep it tight. I'll see you guys in about 20 minutes. As always, thank you, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I will talk to you soon. Go Bucks.